Hi, Dr. Don.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So I have a couple of questions for our business IA. And the first one is, do you find that Awsaj's employees are dissatisfied with their jobs, and why or why not?
So I think that the majority of our employees are pretty satisfied with their job. Of course, we work in a school system, so you're always going to have a tough day or a day where you're thinking, why did I go into this profession of working with kids? This was a tough day. Where they might say, oh my gosh, on Facebook, what a tough day it was. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're dissatisfied. I think the majority of our employees here at Awsaj, they're kind of called to Awsaj because it's a special kind of school and they're pretty loyal to it. I think overall, when you look at international schools, our teachers at Awsaj stay much longer than the average rate of international teachers, which is usually around 3 years. Our staff stays around 5 to 6 as an average. So I think overall they're pretty satisfied, but still tired and exhausted sometimes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What do you think the motivators for the workers are? Do you think these motivators motivate them enough?
I think you have a lot of motivations for the job, and it depends really on who you're talking about. If you're talking about like more of the local worker that comes from the area or the region or GCC, I think a big motivator is working for Qatar Foundation because it has a really good package compared to the home countries that they come from. I think from the expat that comes from, let's say, the US or Canada or the UK or Australia or New Zealand, I think a lot of those teachers, they might come also because the package is good, but they also come because they want to try something new. It's adventurous. We live in the middle of the world right here, so it's easy for them to go see other places. You know, they're the same distance to Africa as Europe, as Asia. So I think that can motivate them. And then, like I said earlier, at our school, I think one big motivator for people coming and wanting to be here is just the special mission of our school. A lot of people come just for that reason. And every year I have people that I don't have to recruit that just come to me and say, that's my life. My life is special needs students. And so your school's mission is so unique. I want to be a part of it. And so they're hooked from the beginning.
Do you think that the money is the main motivator for the employees, or is it factors which help employees gain job satisfaction, such as recognition of the job that they are doing or praising them?
You know, I don't think it's money. You know, a lot of times you can say, oh, it's money. You know, the package is good, the salary's good, the benefits are good. But in reality, it doesn't matter how much somebody gets paid or how many benefits they have. If they're not happy in their job, eventually it's not worth the money and they'll leave. And so I think really when you look at the motivating factors, we do have staff that leave and go to other countries and work in other places that will comment, oh wow, the Qatar Foundation package is much better than where we're at. But you know, ultimately it's not the money that makes the difference. It's the school, it's the colleagues that you work with, it's the environment, it's the way you're treated. It's job satisfaction comes from knowing that you can make an impact and that there aren't things that get in your way and keep you from making an impact on, for our business, it would be on student learning. So if people are frustrated because systems take too long or things that need to get approved take too long, then they can become dissatisfied just as easily as if they didn't get the raise they were expecting.
The next question is, do you believe that Awsaj's revenue could boost up if the management motivate their employees?
Like as in revenue, as in more salary?
As in like more students coming to the school?
That's a good question. So would the revenue increase motivation? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I think in our case...
The question is, would motivation increase the revenue?
Okay. So would more students come here if our employees are more motivated?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there could be a direct correlation, and the correlation is if we have kids that go to our school, especially the older kids, that talk to their friends and say, we really like our school, we really like what we do there, then they might come to us and say, we want to be a part of the school. We have an example of that. We started a program called Awsaj Prime about a year and a half ago, and it's more of an alternative learning program. Almost all of our students that are in Awsaj Prime were self-referred by friends. So it wasn't advertising, it wasn't our school saying, come to our school, we have a new program. It was friends of their friends saying, hey, we really like our school, we really think it's pretty cool because of our teachers. They're really motivated, they encourage us. So that directly has been related to increasing revenue because we've gained 20 more students that we wouldn't have had before at all. Yeah. And so that makes a difference.
Were these students from the school itself? Or
some of the students were from the school, some of them were from other schools, and they just weren't having success in their schools. Yeah. So they came here because they heard that we're a school that could help them out because of their challenges. Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys, does the school have a problem with labor turnover and absenteeism?
We don't, as I mentioned earlier, we are, as far as our turnover goes, we were at about 12% turnover this last year, and 6% of the turnover were teachers that we trained that went to other Cutter Foundation schools because they're well trained and they work with special needs kids, and so they went to the new autism school that's being formed, and they went to Sidra School, and they went to the Teaching and Learning Center. And so we're okay with that. We're okay with training them and giving them expertise, and then they help everybody in the QF schools out. And then the other 6% were people that were moving on to other international posts. Some of them had been here as long as 10 years. And so I would say our attrition rate is not very high. You know, we keep a lot of our staff. Like I said, they're pretty loyal. I think overall, it's not the norm in an international school to have a rate that's that high, you know. But you never know. Every year's different. You know, we could lose 25% next year. You know, who knows? Just because different things happen. There's a lot of factors.
And does the school have any problems with teachers being absent?
Absenteeism, yes, we do. I would be lying if I said we don't, because anytime that you have teachers in a school with lots of kids and there's sicknesses going around, you're going to have an absenteeism rate. We also have maternity leaves, military leaves, professional development leaves, and so we do have sometimes a pretty high absentee rate. We do also have 4 employees that have had excessive absences that are on plan of improvements for their absenteeism, to kind of benchmarks to help them be successful, just so we can support them and coach them and see what the issue is. I think that our absenteeism rate in the beginning of the year is it's much better than at the end of the year, and I think part of that can be attributed to health at the end of the year, people being worn down, people being more susceptible to illness. It can also be contributed to, for instance, all of our teachers that leave are granted a week leave to go for recruiting, and so those people leave at the end of the year to go to job fairs and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different factors, but yeah, we have, I consider, an absenteeism problem, because until we solve it and we get enough substitutes or we take care of people in a better way, even if there's just 10% of our staff that struggle with it, that's too much. So
yeah. The next question is, how's your turnover rate and absenteeism rate compared to those of competing schools such as QA or ASD?
I would say probably it's pretty similar to QA Doha or American School of Doha, with the exception of possibly the folks that are on plans of improvement for their absenteeism. I don't know if that's the same for QA Doha, but I doubt that's an issue at the American School of Doha, because I'm pretty sure that they would just probably fire the people if they didn't come to work. You know, like we've had the issues. We tend to give them a lot more chances and work with them and support them. So I would say, I think that it's similar to QA Doha or the other QF schools from what I'm hearing from the other directors, but it's different for a school like the American School of Doha, where they don't have any stipulations as far as keeping people of different nationalities, even if they're not showing up to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. The last question is, what motivates uh, any teacher as an employee to make them work at their best effort? Do you think increasing the salary will increase the productivity of teachers?
I think even if we have a pay by performance system here already at our school or in Cutter Foundation. So essentially, the way the appraisal system works is if you meet standard, you get a 5% salary increase. If you're exceeding standard, you get a 7% increase. If you're not meeting standard, you get a 3%. If you're unsatisfactory, it's like you don't get anything basically. And so when I look at that, I don't think that that's a motivator for people that increases their productivity. I don't see necessarily a difference between a person that gets a 3, a 5, or a 7 as far as their output in the future. I think that that's a nice thing that might motivate some people, but I think overall the thing that motivates people the most would be relationships, work environments, how people feel when they're at work, whether they have close colleagues that they consider to be their friends. That's an indicator of job satisfaction, is if you have someone that you like to be around when you're at work. If they don't have any friends or anyone they would consider to be friends at their workplace, their job satisfaction won't be high. It doesn't matter if they get a 7% increase every year. They're still going to come to work and feel like, it's not the most comfortable place. I'm going to do my 8 hours, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to have my real life when I go home. But if your life that you're really attached to and that you look forward to is at work because you get to see your friends, you get to be with your friends, there's people that are like-minded, there's people that have the same types of interest as you, then you're more motivated, you're more successful. I think that's sometimes the way schools tend to be that way a little bit more, because educators go into education usually, hopefully, because they like kids and they like working with kids and they like teaching. And so if they already like that, they have some things in common with everybody else that's in the school, and they usually can find ways to get along with people. Now there's some people that have a hard time getting along with other people, and that's a whole different story. But I think overall that doesn't necessarily affect motivation or retention of employees unless that becomes the culture. If you have a culture where people become negative and that becomes the prevailing force, and where people are gossiping or talking badly about each other or not getting along, and that's like the pervasive culture, then that is a bigger factor driving people out than I would say their salary.